New tonight, a mother desperate for help took her teenage son to the emergency room one night last December to seek emergency mental health treatment.
Instead of getting the help he needed, the boy was violently assaulted, first by hospital security guards and then by a Lincoln County Sheriff's deputy. And it was all caught on tape. WBTV's chief investigative reporter Nick Oxner has the story.
It's traumatized him. It's traumatized me.
Jessica Long is watching video of the night she took her son to the emergency room at Atrium Health Lincolnton. She was worried he was having a mental health emergency. Her 16-year-old son didn't want to be there. He was angry, so she asked for security to help get him inside. This is what happened instead. At
no point did they tell him to put his hands behind his back, to stand still. They never tried to de-escalate the situation. They just immediately went for full-blown physical force. The guard shoves him again hard enough that my son came out of his shoes. I jumped in the middle because the guard was getting ready to tase him, and I was telling him, no, don't tase him. I don't know what's wrong.
While the first guard has his taser drawn, a second guard arrives. The taser's put away and Long headed for her car. She wanted her son to stay and get treatment, but she didn't think this would happen next.
As soon as I turned my back, the second security guard grabbed him around his neck in a chokehold and slammed him down on the ground. He was immediately bleeding.
As all this is happening, what's going through your mind in the middle of it?
I was in shock. I didn't know what to do.
Her son was on the ground, blood from his mouth pooling on the concrete. Drive stunned twice with a taser.
Did Atrium staff act appropriately in that incident?
Based on the events and you saw in the video, I would say they did the best that they could under the circumstances.
Maureen Swick is the executive over security at Atrium Health. She defended the security guard's actions, including tackling the boy from behind.
The officer at the time did what he needed to do to keep the young man from getting to the car.
He's not in the vehicle. His mother's standing right there. There doesn't appear to be any warning that he's going to jump on top of him. Again, is that appropriate and within the training guidelines for Atrium security officers?
Well, I think when we talk to our security officers, certainly there's always opportunities where we can do a better job and prevent an incident like this from happening again, and that's something that we intend to do.
But the violence didn't end there. After the two guards sat on top of the boy for at least 5 minutes, 4 Lincoln County Sheriff's deputies arrive on scene, tell the guards to get off the boy, and then pick him up. The boy, whose mouth had been pooling with blood, restrained on the ground, spits. Then, a deputy punches him twice, in the face, while the boy's hands are cuffed behind his back.
Your deputy punched a 16-year-old with his hands handcuffed behind his back twice. Is that an appropriate use of force?
All I saw was once, and he was pushing him back away.
When you watch the video, you don't think your deputy punched the child in the face twice?
No, he did not punch him in the face.
Lincoln County Sheriff Bill Beam defended his deputy's actions, even behavior like this, where the deputy was so worked up, the video shows, he got in Jessica Long's face and had to be taken to the ground by a fellow deputy.
He did not tackle him. One went in between the two, and another reached and grabbed him by the vest and just pulled him right around the corner.
Well, they'd end up on the ground.
No.
If I'm a worried mother, and I'm worried about my child who has mental illness, should I be afraid to take my child to the ER at Atrium Health in the future?
Absolutely not. This was one incident. We have over 14 million patient encounters a year, and incidents like this rarely happen. And the actions that the officers took to keep others safe and to keep him safe were appropriate.
The people that I thought were going to help, they did nothing but make it worse. They created a situation that should have never happened.
If you can't go to the hospital, where can you go?
Nowhere. I won't do it again.
Did the system fail your son?
Absolutely.
Now, the boy was arrested and charged with multiple misdemeanors and felony assault on a police officer. He was held in juvenile detention for 8 days before being let out by a judge. The charges are still pending as the sheriff's office, including the deputy that punched the boy in the face, insists that felony charge stick. Jamie, Maureen?
A felony against the young man.
Yes.
Did Atrium staff follow its policies and protocols?
Well, Jamie, that's a really good question. We put that question to the executive from Atrium. You saw in that piece. We'll have more of that answer tonight at 7:30 and On Your Side tonight.
Just one jaw-dropping moment after another in that report. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Nick. We'll see you at 7:30.
On Your Side tonight, taking a deeper look tonight at what happened when a local mom tried to get her son mental health treatment at the emergency room. We first told you about this tonight at 6 o'clock. The video is really hard to watch. See it here as an atrium security guard tackles this 16-year-old boy from behind and then pins him on the ground as he lay bleeding from the mouth. He'd ultimately be stunned with a taser twice before sheriff's deputies arrived.
The people that I thought were going to help, they did nothing but make it worse. They created a situation that should have never happened.
That right there is Jessica Long, the boy's mother. She called WBTV's chief investigative reporter Nick Oxner after the incident because she wanted answers for what happened to her son. It is hard to watch. Nick is here now to talk more about this. And there are still questions about whether the atrium guards even followed their policies and procedures, right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely there are, Jamie. Everything from whether it was appropriate to grab the boy to using the taser and even how the guards wrote up the incident afterwards. It doesn't appear the guards followed their own policies, and the hospital executive I spoke with didn't seem to have a good explanation as to what would happen to those guards as a result.
This incident report from Atrium Health says a security guard escalated to using force on a 16-year-old whose worried mother brought him to the ER because, the report says, the boy punched him in the face. But when you watch the video, that's not what you see. Instead, you see the guard grab the boy, his arms flailing in the air. And if you slow the video down, it's clear he didn't make contact with the guard at all. But that didn't stop Atrium executive Maureen Swick, who's over hospital security, from making the claim anyway.
So you stand by the fact that the young man actually hit the officer in the head?
You could see him swing.
That's not what I asked. Do you stand by the fact that the young man hit the officer in the head?
Yes, that's what the officer stated.
I understand that, but you've seen the video. Do you think the young man hit the officer in the head?
From the angle that I was watching the video, I could not see that, but that's what the officer stated.
Later, a second guard jumps on the boy and tackles him to the ground, busting his lip and mouth. The report says the guard assisted the boy to the ground. Atrium policy says reports are supposed to be accurate and truthful. Policy also says there's supposed to have been a use of force report completed for this incident and something called a hot wash form filled out because the boy was stunned with the taser. Neither report was completed in a way required by policy.
It doesn't appear that there's reporting that complies with your policies. There's no reporting about the actions of the officer, what was said, his verbal attempts to de-escalate the situation. Your hot wash form doesn't include the details that are specified in your policy. How are we supposed to rely on this documentation as proof if it's not properly filled out?
Certainly the documentation needs significant improvement, and that was something when we went through and reviewed this incident, reviewed the documentation, that is something that we're taking as an opportunity that we need to work on.
Sure, but Officer Leal said that he helped the patient to the ground. Doesn't look like helping him to the ground when I watched that video. He looks like he tackled a child from behind. Is he being honest in his in his summary? Is he being honest in his write-up of this incident?
That goes back to the report writing that I just spoke about, that we need to work on in improving.
And yet we're talking about a 16-year-old child who might weigh 120 pounds, who's taken to the ER by his mother because she thought he was having a mental health emergency, ends up getting assaulted by two of your security officers who then call the police, who further assault this young man. So is this the situation that kept anybody safe, and was it appropriate?
Our officers were able to contain him and keep him from hurting himself or anybody else. And again, I said we were sorry, and it was unfortunate that this young man was injured.
So he kept from hurting himself, but yet he was injured, right? We saw it, obviously, the blood on the ground. Let me play, give him the benefit of the doubt for a second. Is there any part of this incident that we're not seeing in the video clips that you're playing that would put this in any kind of different context?
We cut out from the video that you saw on TV about 10 minutes of the officers just sitting on top of the boy. But no, and I'm glad you asked this question, Jamie, because not 10 minutes ago, Atrium tweeted out a link that they say shows the full story about what happened in this incident. Surprising to me because we have the video.
Right.
You've seen the video. I don't know what we're missing about this video, but let me make this abundantly clear, Jamie. You've watched the video. Yeah. You've seen the actions of the Atrium security officers and the sheriff's deputy here. That's the full story.
Yeah, we saw it. It's all there for us to see. Let me take you back to these incident reports so they get filled out. What happens to them from there? Is there any kind of verification that is supposed to happen with them? For example, do they talk to the mom to get her side of the story?
They definitely didn't talk to Jessica Long, the mom in this story. Maureen Swick said she reviewed this incident the day after it happened. It's not clear what that review entails. And in fact, Officer Leal, that's the officer in the black there that jumped on top of the boy from behind, both wrote the incident report and is listed as the supervisor on the incident report. And it's not clear how and what the additional layers of review look like beyond that.
And I can help but put myself in the position of the parent there, not knowing, you know, what to do in this situation. Obviously, there's so much stress with all of this. So we've got the security guards here, but there's also the sheriff's deputies that also responded to this. Any sort of discipline against any of them for this?
There's nothing in the records that show that either of the two security guards that you're seeing on your screen now were disciplined at all. You heard Maureen Swick say that there were some policy violations, and at 6 o'clock in some of the answers to my questions, she said there are learning opportunities, but there's no record of evidence. Sheriff Bill Beam in Lincoln County says the deputy that punched the boy with his hands cuffed behind his back was disciplined. Again, nothing that would appear in his records, and only, not because he punched the boy that was handcuffed, but only because he got in the face of Jessica Long.
The mother. You can see that video from our 6 o'clock. Real quick, it's point out too, the boy is the one who actually is in trouble right now.
Yes, he's facing multiple criminal charges, including felony assault on a police officer. It's the officer that punched him that's insisting to the DA that that felony charge stick.
Nick Oxner reporting for us on this story. Again, go back and see the report from 6 o'clock. This one again tonight on our website at WBTV.com. Nick, appreciate it.
Thanks
as always. Let us know what you think. Speak out. Use the hashtag OYSTonight on Twitter or email askjamie@WBTV.com.
Plus, a teen tackled, handcuffed, and later punched in the face by a deputy, all while his mother was trying to get him help at a local hospital.
Did the system fail your son?
Absolutely.
Tonight, this story is grabbing headlines across the country, and there's new information as that teen just went before a judge accused of assaulting the deputy who hit him. It's good to have you here at 6. I'm Maureen O'Boyle.
And I'm Jamie Bolt. WBTV was the first to show you this video and break this story in our investigation. Here it is. Over the weekend, we learned the deputy caught on camera hitting that handcuffed teen is no longer working for the sheriff's office. And in just the past 90 minutes, a felony assault charge against the teen in that video was dismissed. WBTV Chief Investigative Reporter Nick Oxner joins us now live from Lincoln County. So Nick, that teen ended up taking a plea on a lesser charge for spitting blood onto the deputy?
Yeah, Jamie, that plea deal was reached between attorneys for that boy, 16-year-old Hayden Long, and prosecutors with the Lincoln County District Attorney's Office. It's called an Alford plea, and what he pled to was 1 count of misdemeanor simple assault and 1 count of a minor under the age of 19 consuming alcohol. After the court hearing today, both his lawyer and the boy's lawyer and mother said they took that plea because they felt like they had no other choice. This is the video, of course you've seen it by now, that started all of this when Jessica Long took her 16-year-old son to the emergency room at Atrium Health Lincolnton in December. She thought her son could have been having a mental health emergency. She asked for security guards at the hospital to come out and help her get her angry son, who didn't want to be at the hospital, into the ER. Instead, guards shoved him, later tackled him from behind, stunned him twice with a taser before then Deputy Justin Polson punched the boy twice in the face. It's the interaction between Hayden Long and Justin Polson that underlined the simple assault charge today. It's worth pointing out the boy pleading guilty to spitting, simple assault charge of spitting in that deputy's face. The deputy, though, so far going scotch-free. In fact, he only pled because otherwise he might be facing adult charges. I spoke with both Hayden Long's lawyer, Brad Smith, and his mother, Jessica Long, after court today. Here's what they had to say. Do you think the justice system serves you and your family?
Not at all. I really don't. It would be nice if we could actually say what happened. We've still never actually got to tell a judge. It was still just basically risk a felony, and then we could have told everybody, but we would have been in an adult courtroom.
Now, again, the only reason Hayden Long took that plea deal today was because otherwise District Attorney Mike Miller said he was going to bring felony assault charges against Hayden Long in adult court. So it was either plead as a juvenile or go to adult court. We've had a lot of questions from many of you on Facebook, on Twitter, getting lots of feedback on this story, wanting to know, is anything going to happen to that deputy? Well, we know Justin Polson's no longer with the sheriff's office, but we sat out here after court for more than an hour waiting for District Attorney Mike Miller, the elected DA who was in the room making the plea negotiation this afternoon. We wanted to ask him, why were you still proceeding with the felony charge against Hayden Long, and will you do anything to investigate the deputy that punched a 16-year-old with his hands cuffed behind his back? The district attorney left the courtroom before the hearing was finished, and even though we've been waiting now since about 4:30, we still haven't seen Mike Miller to ask him our questions. Of course, he's an elected official. We'll put those questions to him at some point. For now, reporting live in Lincolnton, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
We know you will stay on top of this. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Now, Nick did question the Lincoln County Sheriff about this case, and we've posted his response and the full interview on WBTV.com. We've also posted the entire surveillance video from the hospital. Just look for this top story.
First, though, charges dismissed in the case of a teen being punched outside of an emergency room.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. It is a story we first brought you last week, and as soon as it aired, we started getting reaction from you at home. It all started with this videotape. A teen's mom brought her son to the ER at Atrium Lincolnton for mental health treatment. The video shows a deputy tackling, handcuffing, and then punching the boy. You'll see that coming up here. The sheriff defended the deputy, saying the teen spit in his face. Now, the teen was the one ultimately charged, felony assault. This afternoon, he went to court, and that felony charge was dismissed. But his family says it's not enough.
This wasn't a case that needed to go to Superior Court. This wasn't a young man that needed to be prosecuted as an adult.
If you have a mental illness, you have a mental illness, and not knowing what's wrong, you're supposed to go to an emergency room.
Where are you going to turn now?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I mean, the next time your son might need help, where can you go?
Not Atrium and not Lincoln County.
We are joined now by Nick Oxner to talk more about this, our chief investigative reporter again, who broke this story last week, a story now getting national attention. Yes. Lots of folks paying attention to this. Let's talk about the plea deal first. This was a felony charge, yes, but he didn't get off completely, right?
Well, so the original charges were a string of several misdemeanors and that a felony assault on a law enforcement officer. So the plea deal today, he pleaded to 2 misdemeanor charges in exchange for that felony charge being dropped.
What was the mother's reaction to that?
You know, she said that it was really the best of a bad situation, right? They opted for her son not to face the felony charge because she said the district attorney was made clear that he was going to move forward and seek a grand jury indictment in an adult court. All today's proceedings were in juvenile court. It'll be a juvenile record. And so they decided, look, here we are, we'll take this. It's a bad option, but it's better than the alternative. And her general thought is we shouldn't be in this situation at all. I took my son to the hospital to get mental health treatment. Right. And ultimately he was beaten like you've seen and charged with crimes.
And it was a misdemeanor. The final charge is a misdemeanor. Yes. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
That's important because obviously felonies carry whole other ramifications.
That's what kept it in juvenile court.
And you mentioned the district attorney. I know you tried to talk to him today. Is he saying anything now?
No, he said nothing. District Attorney Mike Miller was in the room today when they worked out the plea deal. In fact, there were some as dramatic as you can get in court in these kinds of hearings, when they thought they had a deal for the charge to the misdemeanor assault, and turns out they also tacked on at the very last minute a misdemeanor charge of a minor consuming alcohol under the age of 19. But the district attorney was in the room, and we understand that he was the person who said, we're going to go forward with this as a felony charge if you don't take this deal today. We had questions about that because we've heard a lot of questions from folks at home about what is the DA doing? Why is he still charging his kid? Is the DA going to investigate the actions of the deputy who punched the kid with his hands behind his back? We wanted to ask all of those questions. Mike Miller, the elected district attorney, left court before the hearing was over and then somehow got out of the courthouse before we could find him. Trust me, we were looking for 2 hours.
It really struck me there, the mom that you had there, and just the little bit that we played from her today. What do they do the next time?
She really doesn't know. You just heard her there.
Yeah.
Because for her, the emergency room is where you bring your mentally ill child. And her son, Hayden Long, we didn't identify him in our original piece. The outpour of support and the reaction to this has been such that he's now identifying himself. And the mom said, look, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to take me bringing my son's mental health issues public to get attention to this kind of thing. But Hayden Long said in court today, because you had to ask answered to the judge, you know, he was being medicated on antidepressants today. And so he has a medicated mental health condition.
Right.
She was going to get help because she thought he might be having a mental health emergency that night.
And just real quick, one of the deputies involved in that incident is no longer with the sheriff's office.
The deputy who punched Hayden Long in the face is no longer with the sheriff's office. He did appear in court today and told a judge that he didn't think Hayden Long was having a mental health incident the night that he punched him.
We know you'll stay on top of the story for us, and Nick Oxner doing terrific work on this, and you can watch all of Nick's reporting on this. Just head to our website, WBTV.com, and you can always let us know what you think. Speak out. Use the hashtag OYSTonight on Twitter or email askjamie@WBTV.com.
And tonight, new developments in a local story making national headlines. And by now, you've probably seen this video. A 16-year-old boy getting tackled from behind by a security guard at the Atrium ER in Lincolnton. That was before he was stunned with a taser twice, and before a sheriff's deputy punched him in the face while his hands were cuffed behind his back. WBTV was first to uncover this video in an investigation last week, and since then, it's gotten tens of thousands of clicks online and multiple national networks coming to town to cover the story. But yet there's still a 16-year-old boy at the center of it all, and we don't want to forget him. His name is Hayden Long. He was in court today because he was charged with crimes after being violently assaulted. WBTV's chief investigative reporter, Nick Oxner, originally broke this story. He has the full story of what happened in court today, all new for you at 11.
Hayden Long spoke softly but directly in court Monday, answering a list of questions from a judge as he entered a guilty plea to 2 misdemeanor charges: simple assault and consumption of alcohol by a minor. The charges stem from this violent encounter between Long and security guards and a sheriff's deputy outside of the Atrium ER in Lincolnton in December.
I was really nervous today. I still don't feel great about it. I don't like that Hayden was put in that position.
Jessica Long is Hayden's mom. She brought her son to the ER that night, fearing he was having a mental health emergency. He takes medication for depression.
I needed medical treatment, and we didn't get it, and now it's out there for everybody. And it's a shame that I was backed into a corner where I had to do that.
Do you think any of this had to happen?
No. No, it didn't. There shouldn't have ever been criminal charges to begin with. I'm honestly angry that I felt like I had to turn to the media to begin with. I have just put my child's information out there for everyone.
Long pleaded guilty to assaulting then-Deputy Justin Polson, seen here punching Long in the face. Polson left the sheriff's office Saturday, but stood in court Monday and said he didn't think Long was having a mental health emergency at all. Long's attorney, Brad Smith, said had Long not taken the plea deal, District Attorney Mike Miller was going to charge him with felony assault as an adult.
Were you surprised that the district attorney was so aggressively pursuing the felony charge?
I was.
So far, no indication Miller will investigate the force used by Polson or the hospital guards.
Maybe a law enforcement agency will look into the actions of the other folks that were involved in this incident.
We never got to say exactly what happened and exactly why we were at the hospital.
Do you think the justice system serves you and your family?
Not at all. I really don't.
The elected district attorney in Lincoln County, Mike Miller, sat in the back of the courtroom for today's hearing and left before court adjourned. We spent 2 hours sitting outside the courthouse waiting for him to come out so we could ask him questions, but never saw him leave. Molly?